Okay, good evening, everyone. We're delighted to have you here. We have some people joining, so we'll just let them join. I'm going to ask everyone to mute their mics. And I have Mrs. Sandra Griffith-Carrington, who's the Campus Alumni Officer for the Open Campus, and Mr. Craig Rooms, who is the Medical Alumni Officer at the IAD, assisting me this evening. And I'm very happy for them to be here as well. And I know you're looking forward to hearing about this very interesting topic. So I'd like to officially welcome you to Top Tier Talks. We're waiting for just a few more persons to join. I think everybody's joining at the same time. Being on time. Great. Well, as people join, I would like again to say a very good welcome. And first of all, to let you know that this session is being recorded, and by joining, you are giving consent for your image or voice to be recorded with the understanding that they may appear in UE Media or other media in the future. So once again, welcome. My name is Celia Davidson Francis. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for the UWI. I'm responsible for the global UWI alumni population, and I'm based in Kingston, Jamaica at the UWI regional headquarters. So I'll ask Mr. Rooms to put on the next slide, and we can begin. Well, as I said before, I'm really excited to bring you tonight's Top Tier Talk. It's designed to allow our graduates to hear from top UWI management about a topic of their choice that they feel is important and that they wish to share with you. These sessions also give graduates and UE Pelicans an opportunity to interact with UWI executives. They're a special part of our Soft and Life Skills series, which is a part of our Pelican Perks Advantage program. I started the Alumni Relations Soft and Life Skills webinars so alumni could share their life experiences and expertise with UE students and graduates in order to provide some of the soft and life skills that are so vital to overall success. So I am, of course, delighted with this evening's topic. Let me tell you a little bit about our distinguished guest, Professor R. Clive Landis, by way of introduction. He has dual British Barbadian citizenship, and 2 fun facts about him. He makes a salad every day and he sings. Yes, he's a member of the choir of Our Lady of the Rosary Church, Verdun, St. John, Barbados. Regarding his UWI career, he came to Barbados in 2003 to the Georgia Lane Chronic Disease Research Center at UWI, and then became the director there. In 2015, he became deputy principal of the Cave Hill campus. In 2019, he became the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Chair of the Board for Undergraduate Studies for the UWI. And in 2021, he became the principal of the Cave Hill campus. During his UE career, he has also supervised many MD and PhD students and has also taught both at the undergraduate and graduate level. He believes in service and has been involved in his community and is on, for example, the Oversight Committee for Life Sciences Industry, Barbados Investment and Development Corporation, and the Queen Elizabeth Hospital Management Board. He has received many honors, including a special commendation from the UN Secretary General Special Envoy for his work on HIV/AIDS in the Caribbean. And he's also brought in over US $18 million in funding and research grants to the UWI. Yes, you heard right, over $18 million. He is the chair of the UWI COVID Task Force and was on media across the region and the world answering questions about the pandemic, the BBC, CBC TV Barbados, RJR Radio and Nationwide TV in Jamaica, the Observer Radio in Antigua and Barbuda, CNC3 News in Trinidad and Tobago, and UETV. He's also the representative on the CARICOM PAHO Human Resource for Health Action Task Force. In a nutshell, Professor Landis has contributed much to Barbados, the UWI, the Caribbean, and the world through his research and collaborative approach. So, fellow Pelicans and distinguished attendees all, it is with great pleasure that I present to you Professor R. Clive Landis to talk about soft skills, a strange term for the most critical skills. So over to you, Clive. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much, and pleasant good evening to everyone who has joined, especially alumni, Pelicans, students, colleagues, friends. It's my pleasure to be able to speak about soft skills, which I find a very strange term these days for what are actually the most critical skills. So in my talk, I will say some things about me and my academic journey. And particularly during the academic journey, I will speak about how the soft skills would have impacted my journey through the UE in particular, the inflammatory process. We also worked on a really interesting allele that is present in quite high levels in people of African ancestry and vanishingly low in other populations. And you know, when you're working in the Caribbean, and I'm sure all of you know this, sometimes we will reach what we think is a dead end, and we, you know, might pull out the Kadir argument, you know, Kadir, you know, we're in the Caribbean and we just don't have the equipment necessary or the resources to do something. So here in this paper, we were looking at these photomicrographs. One of the takeaways is do not accept limitations. Find a way around the issue, the perceived limitation, innovate, collaborate, do what it takes. Now, one of the soft skills which I speak about is to apply your knowledge in society. Now, as honorary director of the government HIV lab, I'm sure you know what honorary means. It means I have all of the responsibility and none of the pay. You might think that this was fairly altruistic, but it wasn't quite as altruistic as it looks, because I had access to some really important kit that I didn't have in my small lab. So we set up some really nice collaborations between my lab and the government HIV lab. Good luck. So happily, he was booted off the island. He continued to run an illegal stem cell clinic from a hotel room in Hungary, and he met his due fate and was arrested. Getting over the thesis barrier was my first effort at a book. So I made it a ebook, and it's yours for $5.99. But really it is, you know, I had a lot of skill having supervised 10 PhD students in Imperial College. I've supervised 3 PhD students, all of them successfully to the PhD. So, you know, I have something to say about how to supervise postgraduate students, Maine. This is what's known as the WHO's health systems framework. It's not for pandemics, it's just for strengthening a health system. But I thought, well, let's just model and map everything onto this framework of how we acted during a pandemic. And we have a lot of expertise, particularly in disaster and emergency management and also emergency communications. You know, we didn't have any pushback, like in certain countries, you know, when we would say, well, you know, it's a health emergency, you need to stay in your home, because people are used to that from you know, weather events and you know, in other countries, you know, you practically had an insurrection. And so it's interesting, after we published this, merited, it's almost as if, you know, some people have never been praised before in their life. And, you know, I find that you can go an awful long way with encouragement and praise. And criticism is always in private, praise is in public. Apply your skills in society. You know, many of us on this call would have specialist skills, and society does need them. Don't, you know, just keep them for yourself. And if you come across issues which are unethical, speak out. And I hadn't really spoken much about the environment. It's overlapped in various areas of my research culture. And of course, you know, these are not exactly sort of unique opinions that I've put out here. They just come from my particular journey. But if you look at the World Economic Forum, and they published the top 10 soft skills, which, you know, companies are looking for 2025, a lot of these things are exactly the same: analytical thinking, complex problem solving, you know, innovation, social influence. And we have some very nice attributes that we are trying to inculcate to our UE graduates, which I really like these.
Thank you very much, Clive. That was really very, very interesting. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions and comments. I know that Sandra and Gregory are going to help me with that. I would just like to say that you look like you make amazing salads. I think we all need to come over to you for lunch, because I mean, my salads certainly don't look as inviting as yours, so I need to get some tips. Also, I'm a bit of a romantic, so I loved your story about meeting your wife and her being the bridesmaid and you being the best man. And I think it worked out in your favor, because you ended up being in the Caribbean for the most of your life.
Well.
That's great. But I think too, from my perspective, you really showed how important it is. I mean, a lot of people focus on the academic knowledge, but if you don't have the soft skills, you really, really can't make the impact that you would like to. And a couple of them that I noted is that it's very important to balance work and family life, which I certainly agree with. Don't always achieve, but you can always hope. To also don't be limited. Don't have limitations, or don't let limitations stop you. In making your research, or making what you do, whatever it is, whether it's research or the career that you have, make an impact on society, I think is so fulfilling, and I think we can all identify with that. You also mentioned if you see something that's wrong, not being afraid to speak out. And I think a lot of us, I don't know why it is, maybe the 21st century isn't that great in terms of, there's so much communication that people are afraid to say the right thing. We need to get back to that message where people must say the right thing and stand up for their beliefs. You also really underscored how important team building is for leadership. And I'm sure most of us on this call would agree. And I think, and right at the end, you touched on one of my personal passions, which is the environment, climate action, all of us doing the right thing. And I think we have a collective responsibility, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that. And I'm hoping that this chat that you've had has made you more accessible to our alumni, made them understand you more, and hopefully taught them a lot as well. So I'm opening the floor now for questions. And I see Sir Henry Fraser on screen.
I have a feeling that you lost Solomon Hunt, who took my advice to balance work and family, because he had his hand up, but then he disappeared. So I suspect he's gone to join his family.
I think so. His 60th birthday after all.
I'm still here, sir.
From carrying out that initiative. Because when I was told by my mentor that coming to Barbados would be a waste of my research training, I said, let's see. And I was very struck by Clive's statement about the success of the Chronic Disease Research Centre and the tremendous research that they are doing. Because Clive followed on. If I hadn't come to Barbados in 1977 with the determination to lead research in the Caribbean, then Clive would not have been able to come to the Chronic Disease Research Centre. But I'll also tell you one little story that I think is worth telling, because the question is how to get Clive accommodated in the Faculty of Medical Sciences and the Chronic Disease Research Centre, because I could not find desk space for him in the hospital. I went to the university and I explored every laboratory, and there was not a square foot of space that Clive could be accommodated.
Very true, very true. Okay, let's see. We have other questions, I believe.
Took whatever she learned in my PhD, and I'm sure she has her own inner drive and belief system that meant that during the pandemic, she was doing testing as the head of the Best dos Santos National Public Health Laboratory, literally day and night. And she did it for several years. So, you know, that is a student who...
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Very nice. Congrats, Alison, and congrats to you, Clive, both of you. Okay, we have a raised hand back from Dawn Grosvenor. And I agree too. Very well said. Anyone else? Let me check.
I think we should have short courses on that. You know, literally they could be an evening or a day or something, a weekend, if you want to go into a little bit more detail, just about how to apply.
Definitely, I think that's very true. And thank you for that. And now we have Eileen Garcia, who said, you suggest that determination has to be tempered by flexibility and creativity. Do you have an example?
Say that again, please.
Sure. You suggest that determination has to be tempered by flexibility and creativity. Can you give an example?
I heard someone. I
heard someone too. I think what she's saying is you don't, you know, if you're determined to go towards a goal, maybe you have to be more flexible and creative. I think that's what you were saying when you were talking about PhD.
The goal is a PhD, and if
Right.
you take one, you know, particular approach and it really doesn't work, you know, you have to sometimes just work around it or reformulate the question. Actually, I do have an example. Here's an example. So the reason I wrote the book about getting over the thesis barrier is that a student came to me who, well, two students, but the one which I'm going to mention actually addresses this.
Very good, very
It's a
good.
great lab. I love the lab.
And Celia, we have 3 hands up.
Yes, and just
And
before we
Marlene
get-
Hines, Martimore Moxie, Kenneth Hazard, and then Kerwin Fisher.
Sure. Okay, and just before I go to Marlene, I'd like to just mention that in the chat, Clive, Edwin Tulloch Reed says, great talk, Prof. Interesting and very useful. Ich habe Deutsch an der Schule in Jamaica gelernt. So he's emphasizing that it's important to have another language. And I also endorse that. Parce que moi, je parle français, alors, et c'est très important aussi, n'est-ce pas?
Okay, I think something along the lines of a sort of listening, mentoring, emotional intelligence style, you know, where you try to actually understand what the learning style of the person who you're trying to impart those skills to. You don't just come with a sort of, this is my approach, take it or leave it. Because people, you know, do have their multiple intelligences, different ways of learning. So, you know, I think you have to tailor it. I think these kind of skills, I don't think these are off the shelf.
Okay, I think that you made a very good point, and I hope that answered Marlene's question. Over to you now, Moxie. Mortimer.
Barbados. I enjoyed my time there. It was a beautiful experience and a beautiful country. My question is going back into public health, and it's more in relation to vaccinology.
Mm-hmm. Controversies, many of them are sort of synthetic and pushed by malicious people around COVID-19 vaccines, is actually now poisoning the most successful public health you know, vaccination drives that have eliminated all kinds of diseases, childhood diseases, and you know, they will come back. They will come back. I'm very, very worried about it. And you know, yeah, I mean, I think that's enough. I don't need to go into some of the reasons why people are vaccine hesitant, but at this point, there's nothing to be gained by pushing the COVID-19 vaccine. Only potentially harm in here.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Yes. Next is Kenneth Hazard. Go ahead, Kenneth. Well, you're from Grenada, Kenneth? Okay, nice to have you online. I visited Grenada several times. I love it.
Nobody comes to Grenada.
Carry on, Kenneth. Sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Those words, analytical, logical, and then he just used the word rational. I just had a conversation with our CMO only yesterday, and he asked me if we were speaking about vaccines, and as I said, Prof just had repeated some of the words I used to him with regard to the vaccine areas. And I was saying to him, why is it that when we speak vaccine these days, we seem to be speaking COVID-19? I say, what about the other set of vaccination? When I grew up as a child and I had all my vaccines. Mm-hmm. I went as far as taking the flu vaccine when I wanted to travel and so forth. But now you speak vaccination and you only hear COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And you know, it concerns me because we seem to have deviated from rational, logical, and analytical thinking and reasoning.
Mm-hmm. Under deaths. Now, Grenada did, of course, have a very big surge with the Delta, which was probably in the end, when you look back, apart from the original Wuhan strain, was probably the worst strain. Most Caribbean islands were able to contain the COVID-19 outbreak for the whole of 2020. And then, you know, when the economy simply meant that we had to open, you know, what is the point of having no deaths from COVID when your economy has tanked by 20% because tourism is, you know, you've lost your tourism major export market, and all of the subsidiary is on that.
Okay, thank you so much, Clive. And now we're going to move quickly on to Kerwin Fisher and Brendan Bain. Kerwin, go ahead.
And whether there is an organic difference, whether different treatments are needed for Black populations versus white populations, when there's just a fundamental inequality of access issue. So, you know, that was the foundation of the Barbados Eye Studies, which was a famous study, which ended up, I think, with something like 80 publications, and it actually guides eye care amongst African Americans in America. We basically did the study that they couldn't do because we at least have equality of access to healthcare. And so I accept the premise to me is very important that you must have equality. So yes, I think it should be free at the point of care. The difficulty, you know, with a nationalized healthcare system has been played out in many countries that have tried it, where it absorbs a lot of resources. It becomes very bloated and inefficient because of the sheer size of the enterprise. And that's really important.
Yes, Clive, thank you so much. And well, I'll just chip in and say I agree. And I hope, Kerwin, that helped with your understanding. I think that's a problem that the world still needs to solve, but we'll get there one day. And the final question this evening is from Brendan Bain.
So the community and the leadership of the community needs to pay more attention
Absolutely.
to this kind of nurturing. And sometimes I find that people are at a relative disadvantage within the university if they haven't begun to acquire those skills even before they come to university.
Yeah, I mean, I am a great believer in mentoring and role models. You know, I had mentioned that earlier to Marlene. I think it's that sort of personal approach. You know, mentoring in a community is very important. And I think it can apply to any community. You know, there are always role models, you know, and people have to step up and apply their skills in society. And mentoring and apprenticing, you know, I'm a great believer in that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for attending this evening. I think we've all learned and got a lot of valuable information from our special guest. I think that
it's been a pleasure, Celia.
Soft skills really are important, and you really have highlighted that for us. I'd like to let everyone know that a recording of this evening will be available shortly, and we'll be sending out details where you can access it. And I do hope that you have enjoyed this top tier talk. There will be others in the future, and we do hope that you'll also attend those. But I think it really gives an insight to our alumni to the quality of leadership that we have at the University of the West Indies. And if we have a leader like Clive Landis in Barbados, we're well set for the future. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thanks again, Clive. Really very, very good.
Welcome, and thank you all for your attendance and interest.
Okay, everyone, have a good night.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming. I mean, we've had people from Trinidad, Grenada, Bahamas, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Antigua online. So we've had a good representation from across the Caribbean. So thanks so much. Is there anyone who wanted just to say some goodbyes to Clive? Everybody had very good questions, and you elicited a lot of comments and queries. So that's very good. So thanks again. All right, have a good night. Bye, everyone. And Sandra and Craigery, yes, they have been my rocks. So I should give big props to Sandra Griffith Carrington once again, and Mr. Craigery Rooms for helping. Sandra works with me in alumni relations. She's the campus alumni officer for the Open Campus, and Craigery is the UE Medical Alumni Associate that works in our office as well. So they will, I'm sure, be in touch with some of you over time. So we look forward to seeing you at the next Top Tier Talk. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.